Hi everyone, this is Luca from Oasis. Oasis is a layer one blockchain that brings privacy and scalability to the blockchain industry. And today is really my big pleasure to be here with Liam from Staffy, one of our DeFi partners. Staffy is the first DeFi protocol unlocking liquidity of staked assets. And we're going to hear from Liam directly what this means and what are the interesting use cases about Staff itself and the partnership that we as a company have with them. So Liam, I'll hand it over to you. Do you want to just give us a little bit introduction of yourself and tell us a bit more about what Staffy is and going a little bit behind what's hidden on your website, let's say?
Yeah. So hello everyone, I'm Lin. I'm the co-founder of Staffy. So I work as a product manager in the internet giant company. So I drove into the crypto from 2018. So we invented Staffy. So Staffy is the first DeFi protocol unlocking liquidity of state assets. User can stake POS token through Staffy and receive rToken in return, and which are available for trading while still earning staking reward. Staking assets are the type of deposit assets, which are kind of big share of the markets. We know validating, and our team have been validating in different POS chain since the early of 2018, and we found a big problem between the token liquidity and mainnet security. Most of the POS chain and set up incentive mechanism to reward the holder who is staking, and higher staking rates bring a better security but lower its liquidity. So Staffy issue a staking derivative to the stakers when stakers staking through Staffy staking contract. So Staffy staking contract will record and maintain the relation between the derivative holder and stake assets. Staking derivative can be tradable, but staking assets are not. They are locked in the original POS chain, and the ownership of staking asset will be changed when the staking derivative is changed. So that's the key Staffy does.
Thank you. Yeah, you said a lot about what Staffy is. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on what the reward token is and what does it enable? And I think you referred to that as the rToken, right?
Yeah, it's rToken. So rToken, the version of Staffy staking derivative, include many types like rETH, rDots, rRose, maybe in the future. So rXTZ and also rFees, etc. So rToken just short for reward token, and when users stake POS token through Staffy, they will receive an equal amount of token in return. It's a dynamic amount in return. So for example, rRose represent the state rows of Oasis, while the rRose while XTZ represents the XTZ. So rToken allow user to receive staking reward and accept liquidity at any given time by trading rToken instead. So users also have the right to redeem the corresponding amount of stake token at any given time. So yes, so we divide our rToken standard into four categories, including substrate-based rToken, Cosmos SDK rToken, Ethereum rToken, and others. So others include many POS chain like the Oasis and Tezos, Algorand, and Harmony, and etc. So due to the difference of POS projects, there are many details cannot be copy-paste to the others. But we are trying to unite our solution into one. Like staking contract is an open ledger, and it maintains a relation between the rToken and stake assets, as long as stakers stake token through staking contribute in Staffy. So they get rToken in return. So we will deploy many or several staking contract to fulfill our function. Staking contracts built in Staffy chain and connect to original chain one staker behalf. It is more like a ledger for stakers, which maintain and update the relationship between them. In the original process of staking, staker delegate their token to the validator by broadcasting it to the consensus. After the task is finalizing, staker have complete their delegation. While in the staking contract, staking contract will execute the staking process on staker behalf and issue the rToken to the holder instead. And we have 6 features for the rTokens we describe in the website. And so for the details and people who are have the interest and can walk through the details in the website. So yeah, that's a elaboration of rTokens.
Thank you. That's really good. Where are you in terms of adoption, and where is the market in terms of adoption when it comes to the idea of liquid staking? This is definitely something that solves a real problem, which is the trade-off between liquidity and security, as you said before. How's the market reacting to that, given that it's very early stage, and I'm very proud of this partnership exactly because of this reason?
Yes. So actually, like I mentioned before, tokens is tradable at any given time as long as you have a liquidity market for it. So staking contract play a role like a gatekeeper. The redemption can only execute by the rToken holder. So no matter how rToken is exchanged, and then the final rToken holder hold the rights of a redemption. That's how liquid staking works. So with rToken, you don't need to wait for the unstake period, which may last several days. So it can be used to hedge against the market volatility. So when the new staking reward is generated, the Staffy Protocol will periodically update the swap rates of rToken exchange for the original token. So which is the reference to the price of rToken because the swap rates of all rToken are consistent. It is possible to form a stable liquidity market. So Ethereum just launched their deposit contract several days ago. So it raised a hot topic on the staking derivative of ETH2. So there are many solutions on it. So I think there's 2 demand: one the staking derivative and when the deposit contract is when the ETH2 phase 0 is launched. So yeah, so I think we can discuss about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my next questions, exactly around this idea of using the rTokens to hedge against market volatility while still earning rewards, right? So what is the main problem here that you just described, and feel free to go deeper if there's anything more you want to add, but what is the main problem that this solves, and at what point, what kind of use case is supported or enabled by hedging volatility, hedging against market volatility and earning rewards at the same time?
Yes. So if you stake your token in the original chain, the original process will lock your token by providing security for the consensus, right? So there are many kinds of a period that have been adopted by different consensus. So Ethereum will last for there's uncertainty for the locking period in Ethereum 2, but there's a certainty period in the other peers consensus that have existed in the markets, just like Polkadot will lock the stake dodge for 28 days, and also Staffy will lock the fees, the stake fees for 40 days, and the Oasis will lock the door and state roles for several days as well. So if you want to react to the market, so you have to hold your assets in the pocket, right? So if the access is locked in the consensus, you receive the staking reward, but you can react to the markets immediately. So if you hold the R token instead, so we build the markets for the R token. We just like launching some trading pair like R token to the original token in the DEX or in the central exchange, so people can sell the R token in the second markets instead of the sell the locking assets. So it can hedge. I can use to hedge against market volatility. That's what I thought.
Very good, very good. And so one of the things we do a lot at Oasis is thinking of where DeFi is going, and we try to see how the different building blocks that we provide, mainly privacy and scalability, can actually help the evolution of DeFi, and then can help correct some of the elements that over time result into some aspects that end up keeping a lot of people away from DeFi. How is the idea of stuff in general and the R tokens, of course, meant to solve the problems of DeFi, or even more importantly, how it's going to push DeFi forward?
Yeah, so if our token can be successfully integrated into DeFi, we think it is a good significant to the entire DeFi, because we think one of the problems with DeFi now is lack of assets. We all know that most of the current DeFi is built on Ethereum. So we know maybe in the future, so it's going to be built in Oasis as well. So all the access available for DeFi for now, for the current stage, are only the ERC20 tokens, right? But many assets with a market value in the top 20 are not the ERC20. So which make many assets unavailable in DeFi. So most of the projects that adopt the PLC consensus are building their own DeFi ecologies, just like the Oasis, but they are not, I think it's not the time, they are not taking shape, they're not forming a lot of, they're forming a lot of asset islands in order to maintain security. PLS consensus generally encourage or incentivize users to provide security to the consensus through staking. Many assets will be locked in the consensus, resulting in fewer available access in the PLS consensus. So our token can solve this access problem very well, and through the generate agreement, different assets can be brought into the DeFi, and this will enrich the entire DeFi asset type to some extent. And the point is that our token have the right of the staking reward, that the whole right make our token different from the existing assets. So we believe that many new products will emerge based on such interest-bearing assets in the future. So I think the R token is totally different from the existing assets. So it is with interest-bearing. So yeah, that will be very interesting, and there will have many interesting protocol will be built based on these assets, I think. We think.
Cool, thank you. What about the role of privacy in all of these, and a particular one, a reference of how you see privacy in general in DeFi, of course, the context of DeFi, and how you see privacy with the R tokens and with what Staffy is providing.
In fact, I'm still looking for the application direction, looking for the direction of privacy and the staking derivative. I have invested in many research. I do not have a clear application scenario, but my feeling is that having privacy and DeFi will be a direction in the future. Especially after more access entering DeFi, privacy will be an important part to support the development of DeFi. So if we look at the application of privacy in the original token, just like ERC20 token that are used in the DeFi, we may find some clues. And Oasis is, I think Oasis is an explorer in this direction. I think you may have a better idea on the privacy. So, and I think I have the same question for the Oasis side. So, do you have any suggestion or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. When we talk about privacy, it's worth noticing that privacy means different things in different contexts, and clearly this also leads to different answers to your question. And I think the way we see it at Oasis is that at its core, bringing privacy to the blockchain can solve some of the limitations that some other networks or like the current state of DeFi is presenting. So privacy is not only important to ensure confidentiality of maybe like commercial interests or participation of larger institutions or individuals or traders or professionals into certain systems, but it also the absence of privacy is also resulting in different consequences that were not maybe clear like a year ago. One of these being like, even if you think about it, even front running ends up resulting in higher fees, which ends up resulting in the ability of fewer people to join the DeFi space, right? Because it has to be even more convenient. And from there, the actual need of creating these very high incentives that, I mean, maybe are sustainable or maybe not. Like we need to discover that with time. But the point I'm making here is that the absence of privacy in blockchain and in DeFi is causing problems that were not clear maybe like in the past. So here we have two ways of seeing privacy. The number one is, and the most immediate one is, in the short term, privacy can be used as a way to encourage participation and prevent some of the problems like high fees and lack of protection of trades. And in the longer term, there are a lot of applications that can be enabled because of privacy. And one of the ones that we invest the most energy on is the idea of creating reputation. How do you create reputation, right? This is the problem. The thing is, with what Oasis enables, there is this concept of like data capsules, right? Which is this place where all the information goes, and this information is in the end managed by the user. And what this means is that if the right set of incentives are figured out and the user can really benefit from this technology, what happens is that companies and users can actually collaborate on the data because the user will be the one retaining this information, and the actual company can do selective queries on, for instance, the financial position of a certain user, get a certain model, get a certain result back, and then based on that, assessing a different like risk modeling or maybe like an interest rate or whatever is needed. And the reason why this is important is because the second you can build reputation, which is different from just identity, is reputation, right? Which means identity plus essentially completeness of information. Companies can go to the point of enabling more under-collateralized loans, which significantly expands the market way beyond where it is today. So I'll pause it here. And you and I have been talking about the idea of data tokens and the idea of using the rTokens also in the context of data and making that more liquid and also like generating some financial return out of these data tokens. And I remember you being very excited about that. So I'm curious to know more from you about it, and from the idea that our like the synergy between Oasis and Staffy is not just on the DeFi side, which is very important, but also on the what comes next, like the open data part and the data token part that Oasis strongly encourages. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so data tokenization have always been the right direction, and the large amount of data and the large value of data are both an important direction for tokenization. So our team have thoughts and about doing application this direction before, but we lack the corresponding data support. So later we discover that Oasis team is working hard in this direction. So and doing well. So we're very, very excited. So there are many sources of data, and there are many sources of data generation. And if the data can be processed well at the Oasis level, then Staffy will be able to further subdivide the tokenized data. For example, we provide a personal medical data derivative based on the individual data. I think it will be very interesting to connect to the entire staking derivative to the trading markets and DeFi markets. So, like I imagine, our Oasis provide assistance in terms of privacy. Staffy build scenario for the data derivative. The two parties can cooperate to sustain the data, so as to achieve more benefit when the data is protected. So I think that's the key direction of the cooperation between Staffy and Oasis. So we have many talks on the data derivative in the Shanghai blockchain wave with Dongsong, and we have many inspiration, and we have many talks about that. So our team, Staffy team, really want to dive into the details of the data tokenization on the Oasis side. So, and looking for a further or deeper collaboration with the future data staking derivative. So also I want to know I also want to ask for questions from our side. So yes. So what do you think? The rToken. What do you think the data derivative and the staking? So like example, people upload their data into Oasis and authorize their data to third parties with in some ways. What do you think? How to cooperate with the operation of staking? So what do you think the staking will play a role in this data tokenization process?
So one of the key elements that we are designing for is this idea that if the data is put into these capsules that are used and controlled by the users, we think that the data can be a factor of production, right? And a new idea of the data can be created, which is this idea that you can take a piece of data and you can put it in a place where you can lend it to companies, to a marketplace, and you can earn something in exchange, right? So in order for this to be true, some things need to happen. The first one being there has to be something that can be exchanged in a programmatic way, which means that you and I don't have to jump on a call and negotiate what is my data set, what kind of information is in there, how big is the data set, the quality of my data, and establish some SLA around my data sets, right? That process has to be like automatic. So your system and the protocol needs to know all this information without having to negotiate that each time. So when I put $1, it doesn't matter if it's like a USDC or a DAI or whatever that is. The point is you're exchanging one quantity that has one number, and which is one, and the other item is the definition of what you're trading, which is like the dollar in this case. And that should be the same for the data, right? You can say in the current data set, in the current model, like a data set is defined by some level of confidentiality that I attach subjectively to that. So what's confidential for me may not be confidential for you. So it's not a property of the data, but it's something on top. And then at the same time, there has to be like some way of interpreting that, right? Like a protocol that is able to understand that automatically. If this is possible, and that's the idea behind the data token, then you and I can exchange this information via protocol, and I don't have to deal with you anymore because I just put my data there and someone will take it on the other side. And what's also cool is that the data is ubiquitous, so I can lend it to you and I can lend it to another person, all at the same time. And privacy ensures that that data can be not the data token is not really transferred somewhere else, but like stays within the protocol. You can use it for your computation, but then you don't really see what's inside. So I still retain ownership of that. And we are particularly interested in your use case. That's why we got together in First Principle, because essentially what happens is that via Staffy, that data can be transformed into something that can be traded somewhere else at the same time. So there is additional value that can be extracted from that same piece of data. And if I'm a huge believer that blockchain, of course, is bringing like protocol level incentives, but I'm a huge believer that bringing incentives at the application layer as well have the power to have the power to teach people that data is much more valuable than what they think, and creates the right level of incentives that go beyond fairness, that go beyond the idea of like, hey, listen, like data should be yours, but create a strong financial incentive for actually having people ask for their data because they can generate something. So this goes well beyond just saying, give me the data, I'll give you $5, or I'll give you $1, or I'll give you 20% discount. It goes well beyond that. I'm talking about creating a system where this data is actually recognized as a meaningful value that can be derived in the moment, right? In that specific moment without having to go for negotiation. Yeah. So that hopefully answers your question.
Yeah, so there's more questions because we dive into building a DEX to integrate rToken to the existing DEX. So do you think the data derivative can be integrated into the existing DEX because there's a standards for the data derivative. There's many there's many types of data. There's many generation source of the data. So we may face a standard problem, right? So there's many types of data and data derivative. So if we issue a derivative for the data provider, so do you think the existing DEX can integrate the data derivative in the future, or we build a new DEX for the data derivative market?
Yeah, clearly I don't, right now I don't have an answer set in stone, but I think what we're leaning towards is that we won't necessarily be able to use existing DEXs because the amount of information that a DEX will have to read from a data token in order to serve that data token on the other side is possibly more complicated than just saying, oh, it has to be like $1 or like a pair USDC with like BTC or something like that. It has to be a little bit more complicated than that. On one side, there's always going to be like a way of paying, which could be like USDC or whatever, the stable coin issued on the ROS on the Oasis network, and that's why we are working with stablecoin providers to enable that. But on the data token side, I agree with you. There will be many different formats, and I don't think it would be possible to just say, oh, this is a data type 1. It costs $5 per unit. I think there's going to be, given those parameters, the system is going to give you like a price for that token, right? For that data token. So I think that has to be running on more specific DEXs.
Yeah, because we are facing the same problems when the staking derivative, because if we want to issue the fungible, we have to we issue the fungible staking derivative for the stakers, so it can be tradable in the DEXs. Yeah. If we issue different types of it, so it's not going to be a standard. So it's gonna not be tradable in the DEXs, because there will be many and there will be many. So user cannot choose. So I think we're going to face the same problem in the data, because there's lots of data out there, right? So yes, it's going to be yes, we maybe we can investigate more in this direction. So we may have some thoughts on how to solve this problem. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what? Yeah. So one more questions.
Sure.
Sorry. Yeah, because we want to know what the what the project size think about the security of Israel staking derivative for the stakers, because we liquid the state assets. So we do some research. We do many research when the security of the staking derivative, but we didn't follow a problem or our harmful issues when the consensus security. So maybe you have any any insights or thoughts on it, because we think some people did not join the staking, so because they fear the lock-in period, so you cannot react to the secondary markets immediately. So we choose to stay in the wallets or stay in the exchange. So if we issue the staking derivative for the stakers, so we theoretically we're going to increase the staking ratio for the PS consensus. So people have the option, so you can choose the rToken stats. So if the liquidity for the rTokens is good, so people rational people will choose the rToken, right? Of course, the rToken should be secure. So when the staking ratio is increased, so for this consensus, it's relatively safe. So, but I don't think any harmful issues on the consensus if we issue the staking derivative for the stakers. So do you have any concerns on it?
So what I think is that friction for token holders, no matter whether they want to stake or not, it is a huge part of the blockchain space right now, and the trade-off between getting more rewards or exposing to more like volatility issues is a big problem for DeFi. It's a big problem for proof of stake based consensuses, and in general, it's a trade-off for even for people who want to deposit this money. And again, you said 7 days or more, but even for sometimes for like some systems that are more centralized and do some level of yield farming, or if it's not yield farming, at least they pay you an interest on your deposit. Even in that case, there is like a waiting period that it may not be driven by lockup, but it may be driven by security, right? Sometimes they want you to whitelist an address for 24 hours, and in that 24 hours, maybe you end up losing what you gain in 1 year, right? So, like this trade-off is there almost anywhere, no matter whether you approach staking, investing, or your farming, or any other aspect that you can see. I think this is the way I see it, is that this is part of the blockchain industry right now, and what I know is that there are plenty of teams that are working on reducing friction at each point of the blockchain space. And so what I think is companies like ours should be focusing on building the right technology, because there's a strong need of solving these problems. And operators all over the world can take different pieces of the blockchain architecture and try to make it better. Like, you remember back in time when it was even more complicated to get a wallet address. Now it became decently easy to get a wallet address, and someone is making even easier to manage your keys somehow. So like I see this as a natural evolution of what the space is. I don't have of too much of a specific answer, because that's not necessarily my domain of expertise. But the way I see it is that the way that I see that the blockchain industry evolving is that there are a lot of companies that are taking these problems very seriously, and generally every 2 or 3 months there is a solution to each of them that creates a new problem sometimes, but it's a process that everyone is part of, and generally leads to significant improvement over a period of 6 to 8 months.
Mhm. Yeah. So yes, I got answers. So I asked the same question for different PS projects founders or the researchers. So we don't have a very clear answers on it. So that I think that's the right direction we are working on it. So we have to find the answers. So yeah, that's an evolution for the crypto space.
Yeah, cool.
Mhm.
So what is next for Staffy?
So yeah, so we are in Q4. We publish our Q4 roadmap, and we are currently building our rToken standards, including the fees, ETH for H2.0, and RDOT and Kusama. And we just launched our ES20 bridge, and we in our SEA testnet. Welcome to our tax, and it is incentivized for if you find any bugs. So to keep transparency, we have updated our development log on our DAO program, and it's a long road. I think it's a long road to build staking derivative, and we are looking forward for the data derivative and our collaboration with Oasis in the near future. So we are super excited about the derivative because we are not in our vision, we are not only focused on the derivative of state assets. We focus on the derivative of deposit assets. So if data will be deposit in the casino or in the future, so I think it's one type of the deposit assets. So and it's valuable if we can get involved in it. So I think we should keep updating and keep moving on this right direction and let's see what we're gonna do in the future. Yeah.
Cool, Liam. It was absolutely great to have you here. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I love that we kept it very colloquial. I'm looking forward to our next steps, and I'm looking forward to increasing the collaboration with you as well.
Yeah, sounds great. So same as well.
Thank you.